Good morning. Hey, welcome to Sipping Tea with Sabrina. It could be morning where you are, it could be evening, just depends on if you're watching in replay. So, in just a second, we're going to be sharing the tea on securing strategic partnerships to expand your reach. But if you've never met me before, my name is Sabrina Walker Hernandez. I am the Dream Team Architect and the President and CEO of Building Better Boards. I specialize in building elite leadership teams for corporate and nonprofit boards and CEOs, turning high level potential into extraordinary performance. And if you're looking to transform your board or need support working with your board or your team, you've come to the right place. Again, I'm Sabrina. I facilitate for corporate and nonprofit organizations. I'm an international keynote speaker and your go-to expert for strategic leadership and governance excellence. I've helped drive $14 million in revenue. That was one project while building organizational resilience. And I'm here to share the insights and strategies that can make a real difference for you and your organization. So let's get started. And we have with us today, we have Faith Rivera. We're bringing her to the stage. Hi, Faith. How are you doing?
Hello, Sabrina. Happy Women's History Month.
Yes, happy Women's History Month. So this conversation is going to be critical for you if you're wanting to understand securing strategic partnerships to expand your reach, whether you are a nonprofit, an association, or a mission-driven company. This conversation with Faith is for you. So, Faith, while we got you here, let's tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, first of all, Sabrina, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to our conversation ever since we first talked about it a couple months ago. And strategic partnerships is one of my favorite conversations to have, whether you're a nonprofit or a service, mission-driven organization, just because I think it's something that people tend to forget. My background, kind of what brought me here, I've worked a lot within the education and nonprofit program development space. So spent the last decade building up empowerment, education, enrichment programs, primarily in the state of Texas, where really helping initiatives to scale, to thrive, to go across multiple counties, really to help impact the people that those programs were serving, help build capacity for change. And then about 2.5 years ago, actually almost 3 years ago, started my own company really to take the experiences that I had had working with nonprofits, working with healthcare agencies, education agencies, organizations of many kinds, and seeing some of the similar trends, problems, strengths that these organizations had, and thought, maybe I have something that I could bring into this consulting space. Did nothing with my business for the very first year. I had the LLC, but just kind of sat on it as a maybe someday. And then my husband's career actually brought us from Fort Worth, Texas up to Columbus, Ohio. And that was really the kick in the pants that I needed to be like, okay, Faith, you've got some gold that you're sitting on. Why not bring it to the world? And so that's really where I am almost 2 years later into full-time entrepreneurship, really helping organizations build capacity for change. The name of our company, Alos Civitas, literally means nourishing communities in Latin. And that is the core of what we do is we help nourish people, their skills, their mindset, to help them grow, to have the impact and the income that they really desire.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so we have some questions that we have developed, right? And I want to make sure that we get to them. And there might be, just Faith, because you're so dynamic, there might be a question or two that comes up that's not on the list, but I know you got this.
Okay.
So let's start with this one. Like many nonprofits struggle to identify suitable partners. So what criteria should they use to evaluate potential, strategic partnerships?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. Not all partnerships are good partnerships. So let's put that out there into the universe is just because someone says they want to partner doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good partner, right? So what are some of those kind of things that you could think about that would make someone a strong partner? First is, are your missions and values of your organization and you as leaders aligned? because that why, like why the partnership, why your organizations, why your services are going to be part of the root of what drives you forward, right? So are you serving similar populations, but maybe with complementary, non-competing services? If you guys are offering the exact same service, unless you're at capacity and they're not, may not be a good partnership. But I'll give an example. So we're going to give a business example, but just put yourself in the shoes of this example. I myself work a lot on strategic planning. I do a lot of professional development, but I don't do like the systems, the operations, the behind the scenes. But I found someone who does, and our values align. What we offer is so complementary, and our values, again, our values are a big piece of what brought us together. But once I get to a place in my services that I no longer can serve my clients, I have that handoff point. And so think about, as an organization, like what are those common pain points, common needs that your clients have that you could bring someone alongside you? And how is the partnership going to be mutually beneficial for both parties? It needs to be a give and take. It cannot be all on one organization to give, and take. And then lastly, I would say is clearly delineate what both parties are expecting of the partnership. Make it really clear, make it black and white, put it into a formal partnership agreement. If you need to have a lawyer look at it, great. Or if you guys could do it just, the two organization leaders and sign it, date it. It really needs to be clear of who's going to do what, why are they doing it, and what are your checkpoints? Because, we're people, we get busy, we have our own thoughts and expectations of what things are supposed to look like. But having clearly delineated roles and expectations help to kind of take some of the emotion out of it and really focus on the logistics and the business at hand.
Yeah. I remember going into partnerships, and really a lot of it, like you said, you repeat, it was values. A lot of it was values, and do I trust them? Are
Yes.
they trustworthy? That was a huge value for us. So a lot of small nonprofits compete for partnerships with larger or more established organizations. How can they compete? What do they bring to the table?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it almost kind of pits, us versus them mentality. But really, at the end of the day, as a nonprofit, if even if you're a small one, is looking at those services within the community. Again, where are your stop gaps? So if you offer services, maybe you offer case management services, but there is one kind of case management service that you don't offer. Or whenever you get to that end of that client relationship, what is that next optimal step for your clients? I really challenge people to think outside of what's best for us, but really think about what's best for your end user, your client, who you serve, and what's going to make it a better relationship or a better experience for them. How are they going to get their needs met? So again, with my example of, I'm helping organizations scale and grow. What I do, we talk a lot about mindset. We talk a lot about strategy. We talk about overcoming. We talk about how are you actually going to get from A to B. But then if I know that the systems operations piece, the workflows, the automations is outside of my wheelhouse, if I want this to be the most sustainable success for my clients, bringing in the person that I have is going to make them stronger for it. So what organizations are going to make you stronger because of it? Maybe it is another small nonprofit where you're not competing for funding, or you can write each other into a grant, but maybe it is a business. Maybe it is another large nonprofit because then you're getting to kind of capture the attention of both of your organization's audiences.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to say hi, Renee. Renee Jones joined us, and I like to acknowledge people who show up. I know it's harder for folk. Some might be at work, but Renee, welcome to the broadcast. You said something, Faith, that you said grants, and that partnership that I talked about, it was grants. We were 4 organizations kind of competing for the same monies. And we decided to come together to do some comprehensive grant applications. And we hired a grant writer together so it wouldn't be so burdensome on each
That's
organization.
awesome.
Yeah, but I will tell you again, going back to everything that you said, put everything in writing. Make
Yes.
sure the values align.
Yes.
Make sure sometimes in these partnerships, you have to check your ego before.
Yes.
And, you won't be the one who gets the largest piece of the pie sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because you wouldn't have any piece of the pie if you didn't have this partnership.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what are some of the innovative partnership models you've seen that have significantly expanded in nonprofits' reach?
So I think something that's becoming a little bit more popular or common is the for-profit nonprofit partnership. I don't feel like that up until the last couple of years, and I don't know if the pandemic brought it about, or maybe it's just in my lane of the world within more of the social service arena. I feel like a lot of businesses are seeing that they can tap into different audiences or even give back by partnering with nonprofits. And it's not just the ways that you typically think of, like serving on a board, volunteering for an event, sponsorships, being a vendor. Like, yeah, those are all partnerships. But are there services that you offer that you would want to partner with the nonprofit to be able to bring into the community? Or could you be a vendor for a nonprofit if they need, a building contract and you're a builder? Are there opportunities that, you get to serve your community, but also you can still get paid for it? I think sometimes people think nonprofit equals free, and that's not always the case.
Right.
It shouldn't be the case always unless you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. But if it is your business and you want to make or need to make money, there are opportunities to partner on grants. A lot of funders are looking at collaboration and collective impact as ways that they want to move forward. I think, it used to be that like every man, woman organization for
For
themselves
self.
mentality. But I think the pandemic truly brought about that, like, we all are better together. And so I see a lot of organizations, kind of what you mentioned of like either multiple organizations coming together to collaborate, maybe utilizing a coalition as the backbone to apply for the funding and then disperse it to the members. I've even seen where, a nonprofit will apply and kind of funnel money into a school, a business, a, for-profit entity. I've also seen, established partnerships where people will actually formalize a formal entity that is supported by 2, 3, 7 organizations. I think it really comes back to, again, what I said, the values, like why this partnership, what's beneficial. And then if you're not going to form something formal like a LLC or a partnership as a part of it, write letters of support for each other.
Yes.
Put each other in your grant. So if you're 3 organizations in the same county offering complementary services, but applying for the same pot of funding, each of you should be writing a letter of support for this organization and having dollars attached to, if you win this contract, here's how I benefit. If
Right.
I win, here's how you benefit. Because at the end of the day, the clients being served as a part of it are going to be better off.
Yes, yes. I'm nodding my head and just getting excited.
All
This
the
is
things.
so true. All the things, we're, like you said, we're such sometimes every man for himself, every woman for herself, every organization for herself.
Yeah.
But you can only grow and expand in together, in partnership.
Yes.
Exactly what you just said.
Exactly.
Like maybe
And a
you
lot of funders are expecting it. A
yes.
lot of funders are starting to even put requirements in their grants that it's no longer just letters of support. It's, what are your actual community collaborations and partnerships? How is your general community going to be better if you receive this funding? And so if you're not already someone who has a strong relationship aspect of your organization, it needs to be, because you could be literally missing out on funds because you're operating so low.
Yeah. Yep. And just exactly what you said. Even if you don't, how do you say this? Well, I'm just going to say it. Even if you don't trust them enough to do a joint application, and you do individual applications, you can still write each other into your individual applications, which is
exactly
genius. Because now I'm going to say, as a person who's done a number of partnerships, again, what you started off with, is make sure everything is in writing.
Yes.
I have been in some bad partnerships with some school districts. I won't mention what
Don't
specific
mention people. Don't mention it.
school districts who have written us into grants and got the grant, and then we never got the money. So you got to make sure that, yeah, you put everything in writing. So how can nonprofits measure the success of impact of their partnerships beyond, just the financial metrics? Because maybe it won't be a grant, maybe it'll be something else, but how can you measure that success beyond that?
So I think it's important to look at things both qualitatively and quantitatively. And qualitative, it can be, just gathering experience and insight from your staff, from your clients, from your team, really trying to see kind of the before and after, like what benefit has there been, even kind of tracking on your own end as a leader, like what value have you seen come about. Anytime you can put things in writing, not just from a contractual perspective, but also your thoughts down of like what's working and what's not. See if it impacts your impact numbers. Are you able to serve more clients? Are you maybe better able to track your return on investment? So when a funder, a donor, a grantor gives you X dollars, you're saving the community this much, or you're putting this much money back into the economy. So I think it's looking at the impact metrics you're probably already tracking, but then adding that additional component of what else is better off because of it, or maybe the opposite. Maybe you're serving less clients because you're spending 17 hours a month in meetings. And that's something to think about too. Looking at your staff capacity, I think, is really important. Looking at how staff feel supported. And then if there's any opportunities to be a part of collaborative groups, whether it's a coalition, an association, a chamber of commerce, because those relationships are really important. Gathering impact stories. Why is that other organization excited to support you? What stories can they tell? I think with so many people fighting for funds nowadays, I feel like there's a lot of people who have a passion, so they start a nonprofit, which is great, but may not have the strategies and insight to really scale. Right. So who can you pull on? Who can you partner with to maybe bring you elevation? And again, making sure that you're not giving more than you're receiving, at least in the long run. Right. If you are the only organization out of this partnership that's giving, but you're not receiving anything, it's not a good use of your staff time or your time.
Right. It needs to work for everybody on some level. And like I said, maybe short term, yes, you might not have an equal footing, but you have to work that out and you have to evaluate it. So
and partnerships don't have to be forever either. Like try it out for 6 months or a year or 2 years, however long you want it to be. But at each interval where you're like relooking at your contract, relooking at what's working, what's not, you can also say that a partnership is not working and you kind of take out of it. Like I've had opportunities like that, even within my business or with clients that I've worked with, where they're like, hey, you got us to where we need to go, but we don't need to continue. And that's okay. Don't let your feelings get hurt. Or if you're the one that's dissolving the partnership, make sure you have good reason. But also leave it on a positive note, because you never know if you're going to need that person again in the future. And relationships are key. And the nonprofit world is not as big as we think it is. The small business community is not as big as we think it is. And leaving a bad taste in someone's mouth can hurt you in the long run.
Oh yeah, ruin a reputation.
Yes.
So if you're just joining us, welcome to our broadcast. We're currently talking about securing strategic partnerships to expand your reach. And we've just covered some great information around the core values, making sure that aligns, how to create maybe some win-win, but sometimes you are not going to get everything you want out of a partnership. But you are in it for the long term, and you're not just in it to receive, you're in it to give as well. We talked about some innovative partnership models. So I'm going to encourage you, if you are not here live like Miss Renee is, to go back and look at the replay, because some great nuggets have been discussed. And so with that in mind, my next question is going to be, what are the most common reasons nonprofit partnerships fail, and how can organizations mitigate these risks?
I feel like I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but misalignment of values and expectations. you need to be clear. You need to be clear on what you're expecting of people, what you're giving to people, like who's responsible for what, how long are we going to be doing this, why we're doing this. So I think that clear like expectations is huge. Some other common trip ups I think sometimes can be forgetting to have those check-in points with the leadership, like making sure you guys are staying in alignment, make sure that you have a safe place to make sure your voice is heard, that both parties are getting what they need out of the partnership. Um, Not putting that partnership into an application or for funding. Um, yeah, I think people forget that you can co-do, applications together, or you can partner on a project. Bring in the business community. The
Yeah.
amount of business owners that I've talked with that are excited at the opportunity to partner with nonprofits because they're very passionate about their mission, about what they bring to the world. So just because an organization operates from a different model than you, like don't cut them out of the equation. Even if they're not a good partner, maybe they know someone who is.
Right.
Relationships are what take you places in this world, whether it's nonprofit or business. It's who do you know? How do they think about you when your name pops into their brain? Um, are they willing to connect you with someone? Do they trust you?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say those are probably kind of the top three is the relationships, clear expectations, and then creating safe places to have very vulnerable conversations as leadership.
Yeah. Wow. That is so good. I can tell you from the many partnerships involved with, I'll go back to the grant writing one. Man, that one, it lived its course. But it lived its course, and it became over
Mm,
when people, what you go back to trusting your partners,
yeah.
and relationships. When CEOs of different organizations left and new
Mm,
CEOs came in, there was no trust there.
got it.
And then also with the relationships, what started to happen is with those new CEOs who didn't understand that the money is attached to this, they were not working with their staff to get reports. Like,
Oh,
yeah, when you're a fiscal agent and you have to chase down reports and
oh,
documents, that does not become fun at all.
yeah.
So there's that. There's there's one experience that I had that fizzled out.
Yeah.
And it was good while it lasted. The train was good while it lasted. You mentioned something else around like partnering with businesses.
Yeah.
Um, do you have an example of that? I've partnered with municipal governments.
Yeah.
A lot of people, my organization was a quasi department of the city.
Mm,
So that was a huge partnership with us. I partnered with school districts, but I'm trying to think outside of I partner with the banks to have like financial literacy classes for our
yeah.
club members. I was with Boys and Girls Club, but outside of that, I really can't think of a true business partnership. Can you shed some light on that one?
Yeah, so I think those are a couple great examples of ways that you can bring folks outside of your community or outside of what you normally offer. So say you are like the Boys and Girls Club. Maybe a business is willing to donate a service or donate supplies.
Mm,
Maybe they're a consulting agency that you want to come in and do educational opportunities.
mm,
I am working with a client right now that offers music education, and they're a for-profit business, but they're partnering with local school districts and nonprofits to bring their services, and then the nonprofit is the one applying for the funding. And so it's almost kind of a workaround, but it's a good workaround of
yeah,
like if
it
you're a
is.
nonprofit who sees a need that you don't have the capacity to offer, why, if you can't find another nonprofit that does it, but you can find a local business that does, especially if you work with a small business, they're often more likely because they can be more flexible often in their rates. But don't shorthand them, they still need to
Mhm.
pay their staff.
Right.
But it's a great opportunity for them to get in front of a new audience, but also still make the impact that they're wanting to make. So I love that example of the music studio partnering with local schools or childcare, because those agencies can apply for funding. They have the prime audience, but they don't offer the service.
You just made me think. I did have business partnerships.
Uh-huh.
One was with
Uh-huh.
Sylvan Learning Center. They came in. We applied Sylvan Learning Center and the club, several clubs. We did a grant together to the state, and then we got the grant, and in turn, Sylvan offered services. It was passed through
There you
to us,
go.
and then we paid Sylvan. And then another one was, you said music, which I partnered with a small business, which was a karate studio.
Ooh.
Yes, because we didn't have a karate instructor. So we needed one, and we wanted to
Yeah.
provide that service. But we also, kids who could not afford that. So
Yeah.
what we agreed upon was, for every 10 kids who paid the fee, we get to they get to give free service to one child.
That's
So that's how.
amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is good. You're bringing up stuff for me. So, but I do recall some people really push back on that. Well, 10 people have to pay to get the one. Why can't everybody get it free? But we were dealing with a small business. So they, like you said, they have to make money too. So how can nonprofits balance maintaining their mission integrity while pursuing partnerships that might require some compromise?
So I think, again, I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record. First, you got to make sure that you're in alignment with that organization. Make sure that there's a good connection between your leadership and their leadership. And then, if the values are aligning, if their missions are aligning, a lot of small business owners got into their business because they're passionate about the service they offer or the cause that they support. Sometimes they might be willing to do something like what you guys had an experience with, Sabrina, of, buy so many and we'll give a scholarship, or maybe it's you partner where for a certain day or a certain week or a certain month, a certain percentage of their profits go back to the organization. So I think it's coming in, number one, with an open mind. Number two, maybe having a couple of ideas of potential, but then really hearing from the business owner, the business leader, of like what would excite them to be able to bring to the table with this partnership. What would fill their cup? What would their staff be excited about? What would bring them joy, but is still serving your clientele? Again, sometimes I think it's so easy to come at every partnership of like, that, that, what is the saying, like you have the penny in your eye and you can't see the dollar, is like long term.
I've never heard that before. That was good.
You haven't?
No, never.
Oh,
but I like it.
Okay. So, like look at long term, what could this partnership bring for both audiences? With your example of the Boys and Girls Club, is those kids getting physical exercise, learning the discipline that martial arts brings, can help so many of them. And so what kind of model can you bring out that is beneficial to both parties and isn't going to make the small business have to close their doors? So maybe it's a scholarship, maybe it's, a certain proceeds back. Maybe it's, if you're going to be a vendor at their event, then they'll give you a discounted rate because you're a nonprofit, or you could offer services to their staff, and be paid to do it. So I think sometimes we get so narrow focused on it has to be done this way, or we've only done it this way. But why not try something new, see if it works? And if it doesn't, then you don't do it again. But again, what is the benefit to your clients and to what they offer as well?
Yep, that's good. We're going to revisit that one, but let me ask you this question. So I want you to focus on this question, but I want you to also, we're going to revisit this mutual benefit.
Okay.
So what strategies do you recommend for nonprofits looking to build like more long-term sustainable partnerships rather than one-off collaborations?
So sustainability is always a key focus of mine. I know you and I have talked about that before, is like everything that we're doing, like, yeah, we can try things new, but how does it align with what the vision of the organization is? And how do we not just like offer this one-time program, but really build in sustainable infrastructure? So I think once you have an idea, it's how do you build it up over time so that it's actually sustainable and you're not burning out your staff or the other organization's staff. I think sometimes especially those of us who are visionaries, and I think anyone who's in a CEO, executive director, founder role, there's often that visionary aspect. And sometimes we think so big that we don't always put in the practical, tangible steps or bring someone along to help us. Like that's part of, I know what you and I both do in different capacities, Sabrina, is we help people get out of the emotional day in, day out and think, what are those tangible steps that are needed in order to build this sustainably? It's better for building up a new program to take 3 to 6 months and do it in a way that is aligned with who you are, can be done in a successful way, than build it up overnight and it completely flops and then it hurts the reputation of your organization or burns you out and loses you staff along the way.
Yeah, that's a real consequence.
Yeah.
When I say pause and plan, when you don't pause
Yes.
and plan, that's a real consequence. So I know that we talked about mutual benefits and all of that, but how should nonprofits approach partnerships with for-profits? And I want to reiterate this question again, because I think a lot of people don't think about approaching for-profits for these types of partnerships. They think, again, what you said, they think about sponsorships. They think about like purchasing a table at an event. They think about all of that, but they really don't think about how can we really partner to provide some service to the client. So I want you to put that hat on. And here's the question. How should nonprofits approach partnerships with for-profit entities to ensure mutual benefit without compromising their values?
So I think first and foremost is almost doing like a mini needs assessment of the clients that you serve. I'm not telling you go do a whole big survey. Maybe you do need to do one because you're looking at your service offerings, but looking at, again, what are those key needs or maybe gaps in services of what you offer? And is it better, cheaper, could bring you in another partner to actually outsource that than hiring a full team to do it? So for example, I've worked with a client before that offered services for young children and their families, but none of their staff were licensed clinicians, like they weren't mental health clinicians. But they were able to find a small women-owned, minority-owned business that had capacity to be able to offer a certain number of hours for their clients each month. And so they actually had funding set aside and were able to apply for funding. And it was cheaper for them to pay for however many hours a month of services for that outsourcing than to actually hire a part-time or full-time person, offer them supervision, etc. And so I think kind of looking at it from that perspective of what else do your clients need that you may not be positioned to offer, or that doesn't align with how you offer services or what your budget allows. And there's a lot of small, especially small businesses. I'm going to speak to small businesses as a small business owner, as someone who's worked with a lot of small businesses. A lot of them are so mission driven that if you can point out how it is mutually beneficial to both of you and how it also brings them business, helps their clients, a lot of them are going to be willing to negotiate and make it mutually beneficial. And especially if you can say we either have funding to pay for it or are willing to search for it, then it's not a complete loss for them. Because again, is it going to cost you more to hire and supervise a mental health clinician than to just partner with a small business who already offers those services in the community?
Perfect example, because I think, again, that people don't think about for-profit as a partner when we talk about partnerships. So that is a perfect example. And I just want to also acknowledge that we had Empower Care Youth Network Solutions from Zambia join us. So welcome. They're watching from YouTube. So we got people watching from Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. This is pretty awesome. So I want to give them an opportunity to ask you any questions that they have. So if you have any questions around partnerships, please type them out and we will get them answered. That is a part of this. Like, don't be shy.
Ask
If
any
you have
question.
questions, Faith is the expert in this. She's willing to share her knowledge with you. So while you get your thoughts together, see if you have any questions. I'm going to say one of the most common questions that I get is, Sabrina, can you help me with engaging my board in fundraising? And the answer is yes, of course.
Yes,
So,
yes.
right. So the next step is to just visit my website at www.buildingbetterboards.com to check out my service. And if you're watching this in rebroadcast, post your questions in the comments and we will get back with you. You know, Faith hangs out on LinkedIn. I can tell you that. So you can find her on LinkedIn. I'm going to pause. I got 3 platforms to look and see if we have any questions. So if we don't have any questions, again, Faith, I would like to, let me do one more check here. I would like to offer you the opportunity to let people know how they can get in contact with you, what final words you may have. And before you do that, I want to say thank you, because when I asked you to do this, you were right on it. You were like, no problem. Actually, like I said, Faith hangs out on LinkedIn. So I just want to acknowledge that. And she reached out to me on LinkedIn and introduced herself, and we went from there. And she even nominated me for an award, y'all. She is awesome. When you talk about relationships and partnerships and giving and all of that, she is the epitome of that. And so if you want to really dive into this partnership conversation, I suggest you reach out to Faith. Faith, tell people how they can get in contact with you.
Well, thank you, Sabrina. That means a lot. LinkedIn is a great place to find me. I love to connect with folks and hear their stories. On my website, alosavitas.com, it also shares a little bit more about my background, some of the services, what my team does as well. And there's actually a button on there that you can click to schedule a 30-minute virtual coffee chat. So maybe you're like, I don't know if I want to take the full dive yet and do like an audit strategy call. But just book some time on my calendar. Even if I'm not the right fit for people, I always love to see who I can connect them with, or who do I know that may be a good support or good partner. I truly believe that what you give comes back to you. And I was put on this earth to help people. So I'll do that in any way that I can.
Perfect. And so I will be dropping the website in the comments across all the platforms, just so you can have it. So you can reach out to Faith. I really do encourage you to do so. And with that, Renee says, awesome, Faith. So Renee, I expect you to reach out to Faith.
Yes, Renee, please do.
So thank y'all so much. And that is Sipping Tea with Sabrina. See you the next time. Bye-bye.